To stay with us on the conversation, the first half, we dealt with situations in Nigeria where there's a jostle for the seat for the House of Assembly leadership positions. And right now, we switch gears to Zimbabwe, where the ruling party, Zanu PF, has denied accusations of judicial capture, despite claims by opposition and civil society groups that the recent convictions of 3 high-ranking opposition leaders were politically motivated. The party maintains that the country's judiciary is independent and not influenced by politics. The convictions of Citizens Coalition for Change spokesperson Fadzayi Mahere, legislator Job Sikhala, and Transform Zimbabwe leader Jacob Ngarivhume have sparked criticism from the opposition and civil society groups.
Now, Mahere was found guilty of spreading false information on Twitter. Sikhala was found guilty of obstruction of justice, while Ngarivhume was sentenced to 3 years in prison for organizing an anti-corruption protest. With general elections on the horizon, the opposition and civil society groups accused the government and Zanu PF of cracking down on dissenting voices. The sentencing of the opposition leaders has raised concerns about the state of democracy and human rights in Zimbabwe. Now, joining us on this discussion, we have Rashweat Mukundu, Africa advisor at International Media Support, and Gift Ostallos Siziba, the National Deputy Spokesperson of Triple C Party. They both join live from the Zimbabwean capital, Harare. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us, and good evening.
Good evening.
Now, I'd like to start with Ostallos. Can you explain the charges that led to the recent convictions of opposition leaders, legislator Job Sikhala and Transform Zimbabwe leader Jacob Ngarivhume in Zimbabwe? And do you believe these charges were politically motivated?
Thank you very much for having us tonight. Greetings, fellow Africans. The election in Zimbabwe is coming very soon. Just this afternoon, with a court case where one of Zanu PF's agents was applying to postpone the election, and the court has dismissed that particular application, meaning that we are entering into the shadows of an election. And the greatest challenge as we enter into the shadows of this election is the weaponization of the law and persecution by prosecution. We have seen the magistrate court being used to advance a politically motivated challenge. And the latest victim, of course, being our change champion, Honorable Job Sikhala, who has been in prison for more than 190 days now. And of course, the Transform Zimbabwe leader, Ngarivhume, and other leaders, our spokesperson, Advocate Mahere, and different leaders within the rank and file of the opposition movement being in and out of prison for concocted political charges, ones that are designed to make sure that democratic space closes. Number 2, to make sure that the disadvantaged and dismember the authentic opposition, and in this case, which is the Citizens Coalition for Change. Number 3, to ensure that our members don't have the time to be with the people and do the work, but focus on these charges because there are so many of them. And now Job Sikhala was just recently charged and fined $600 or to spend 60 days in prison. We condemn these charges because we know that they are politically motivated violence. All of them are inciting public violence charges, but none has been able to prove these charges, including the case of Transform Zimbabwe leader. All these are designed and targeted towards those that have got dissenting voices in this country.
All right, thank you so much, Ostallos. Now, Rashweat, I mean, we've heard from CCC. I mean, they keep on saying that these charges are politically motivated. We've seen spreading false information, obstruction of justice for different top individuals in the CCC. But is there any evidence to show or to support accusations of judicial capture and interference in Zimbabwe's legal system by the ruling party, that is the Zanu PF?
The evidence is in the treatment of political actors in Zimbabwe, that is the opposition as compared to those who are in the ruling party. We have to weigh how the judiciary and the security system reacts to allegations of the breaking of the law. It could be allegations of violence that are perpetrated by the ruling party and the allegations, similar allegations that are perpetrated by the opposition. And there has been a consistent pattern in which the ruling party actors are not arrested for acts of violence. Those that are arrested for corruption, they are released within a few hours. They do not sleep in cells, they are not tortured. Last year, an opposition party member was killed in the Midlands town of Kwekwe. Those who killed him were arrested, and within a week or so, they were released. We have seen high-ranking Zanu PF officials that are alleged to have misappropriated millions of US dollars when they were in government, being arrested and immediately released by the same courts. But when opposition leaders like Jacob Ngarivhume tweets calling for citizens to protest against the corruption in Zimbabwe, a very innocent tweet, then they are jailed for 4 years. We have seen, as Ostallos said, opposition leaders like Job Sikhala, who called for justice when one of their members was killed, and he was the lawyer representing that family of the murdered opposition supporter, calling on the government and the security sector to expedite their investigations, being arrested for instigating violence. So there is a consistent pattern in which justice seems to be hard on opposition leaders and very lenient on ruling party supporters or those that are affiliates of the ruling party. So the evidence is in how the government or the judiciary has treated those that are accused of breaking the law in Zimbabwe. If you are an opposition leader, you are sure to spend as many days in police custody. You are denied bail, as we have seen with the Job Sikhala. Yet, when ruling party supporters commit acts of violence, they kill, they beat up opposition supporters, they get a slap using the back of the hand. So, to me, there is a consistent pattern in which the judiciary has been captured. And this has increased under the so-called Second Republic, that is after the 2017 coup. Under Robert Mugabe, the courts were somewhat free to look at issues in a fair manner. But under this government, we've actually seen the law itself, the appointment of judges, being tweaked to allow the president to handpick those that he wants to appoint as judges of the High Court and the Supreme Court. And we have seen inducements being given to the magistrate courts. The senior magistrates, they are given cars, they are given 4x4 vehicles, they are given all sorts of monetary inducements, which are not trickling down to the lower ranks of the judiciary. So to me, there has been a consistent pattern. If you look at how the courts have treated those that are alleged to have committed crimes from the two political divides.
Thank you very much, Rashweat, for pointing out to the evidence, and a lot of evidence does about going by the examples you've mentioned. Now, Ostallos, in your opening statements, you talked about the weaponization of the law by the ruling Zanu PF and lawfare. So how might this persecution and lawfare and weaponization of the Zimbabwean judiciary impact the credibility of Zimbabwe's upcoming general elections, do you say, are on the horizon? And what steps can be taken to ensure that the process is free and fair and also credible?
Thank you very much. Like we have always made this consistent call and position that Zimbabwe suffers from a broken down social contract. The current government of Mr. Mnangagwa is a contested government. It's not born out of the collective feeling and thought of the people as was expressed in the 2018 election. And it is the same judiciary as led by Justice Malava that installed Mr. Mnangagwa after the people rejected him. So this stand on a contested leadership and the breakdown of a social contract in Zimbabwe has a bearing both domestically in terms of the performance of the economy, because if you see the challenge we are facing in the economy, it is because of the politics stupid. If you see the international isolation of Zimbabwe into the global geopolitics of the world, it is because of the inability to respect the rule of law, respect and have a proper record on human rights, issues of corruption, of the Al Jazeera documentary and so forth, and of course the manipulation of the judiciary and the role of the Electoral Commission in Zimbabwe. And the danger with having elections, going into an election without key reforms, which is what we articulate in our pre-election pact on reforms, prepared document. We believe and genuinely think that we must be able to have these minimum reforms so that we have a free and fair election in Zimbabwe, so that these elections in 2023 are able to give Zimbabwe a genuine opportunity to choose leaders of their choice, but more importantly, for Zimbabweans to have a leadership which they feel that the ones that installed that leadership, where the winner is going to be congratulated by the winner, where the collective citizenry feel that their words and their feelings have been embraced and therefore able to support and have a strengthened social contract and have confidence being restored into the body politic in this country so that we can fix our problems. So for us, we believe that 2023 gives us a unique opportunity for Zimbabweans across all walks of life, including those in the strategic sectors of government, to be able to have this understanding that until and unless we hold free, fair, and credible elections, we will continue to have challenges. More than 2 million Zimbabweans are in South Africa as economic and political refugees, another 1 million in different parts of the world. So we must be able to deal with these issues by resolving the domestic problems, and domestic political problems emanate from the inability to hold free and fair elections. So we have appealed to the conscience of all those who care. We've also made conversations with SADC and the African Union so that this window that exists, we're able to achieve some of the minimum reforms that must be done, the printing, distribution of the ballot, and all these key issues, the availability of the voters' roll. So all these issues, we've put our case in the cause of the need for a voters' roll because it's an important document, it's provided for in the Constitution. So these 7 minimum reforms for us are important to be achieved if we are to have free and fair election in Zimbabwe and with a credible government, whether it's a Zanu PF government or it's a Triple-C government.
All right, now with the talk of these credible elections, and election is fast approaching, and all this judicial accusation, judicial capture that we're hearing about, how confident are you, Rashweat, of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to bring about a credible election in Zimbabwe?
Look, our confidence is...
Ostallos.
Electoral Commission.
Thank you. Rashweat, you can go on, please.
Yes, the credibility of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is in serious doubt. This based on a number of what I may call a lack of transparency and accountable actions in its preparations for the 2023 election. First, the delimitation report, that is the marking of constituency and ward boundaries, lacked the transparency, did not speak to the community of interest, did not meet the constitutional obligations that are expected in terms of marking the boundaries in preparation for the election. Secondly, this is a commission that is at large managed by former military and security personnel. And in Zimbabwe, we are well aware that security people, and both in the military or intelligence or in the police, they do not retire. You leave your official duty and you join what they call a reserve force. And these are the individuals who are manning at administration level the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. We are also aware that there has been contentions and lack of transparency on the voters' roll, which the opposition has been denied. And those that seek the access to the voters' roll are told that it will cost thousands and thousands in US dollars for one to have access to the voters' roll. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has refused to release an electronic copy of the voters' roll. And we know from past elections that there has been a gerrymandering of the voters' roll and the electoral boundaries. We have seen urban centers being combined with the peri-urban and rural areas. We are seeing the busing of rural people to register in urban centers in order to neutralize the opposition. So based on all this evidence and many more, there is a serious challenge of a lack of credibility of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to deliver a free and fair election. And the reforms that the opposition, civil society are calling for are based on these concerns that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has so far not demonstrated enough credibility to run a free and fair election. And without this, then we are heading for another contested electoral outcome.
Thank you, Rashweat. Now, Ostallos, in your final thoughts, what do you see as the key factors that will determine the outcome of the upcoming election in Zimbabwe, and what is your prediction for the future of the country's political landscape? Hello, Ostallos.
Thank you very much. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
No, thank you very much. We think that we are obviously entering a difficult phase. Like we say, definitely that once the election has been declared, which is the most important thing that must happen, and so that people are able to officially begin to campaign and prepare. The odds are very difficult. It's a very difficult space because of the circumstances that we've highlighted, but we're confident, informed by various researches and conversations in the community. The people of Zimbabwe want change. The people of Zimbabwe are tired because everyone in Zimbabwe is hungry. 97% of the people are jobless. They're acting out a living through the informal sector, vending, and the government has criminalized that again. And to us, without doubt, we think that we must also deal with the vices of violence because we predict that the dictator in Harare will obviously resort to violence, and we believe that our people must remain peaceful. We think that Zimbabweans must be given a chance. The African Union, particularly SADC, also as a region, has an important role in our neighbors to help us as Zimbabweans while we help ourselves. Because the crisis in Zimbabwe, especially for South Africa, is not a foreign policy issue, but a domestic issue. And therefore, all these regional partners, all these regional leaders, look at the case of Zimbabwe so that we're able to have a free, fair, and credible election. And once we go into an election that is fair, that is acceptable to different candidates, that will help Zimbabwe to have a fresh touch, that will help Zimbabwe to be able to transition from vicious cycles of disputed elections into a period where we're able to have a credible leadership that is born out of the interest of ordinary people.
All right, thank you so much, Ostallos. I think, Rashweat, you have the final take here. We're looking at elections, looking at the political landscape and this so-called judicial capture that we're seeing happening. What exactly has been the response from all the opposition parties and even civil society organizations to try and maintain the dignity of the political landscape in Zimbabwe?
We are not only talking of judicial capture, but we are also talking of capture of all key state institutions that should countervail the dominance of the executive or the presidency. So it's not only the judiciary that is captured. Like I said, it's also the electoral commission, it's the security sector, it's also the legislative bodies that are captured. So what we face in Zimbabwe, if Africa and the world are not attentive, is a potential for the collapse of the state. And this collapse of the state is based on the lack of confidence by the citizenry on governance processes and structures. If the 2023 election is going to be stolen, it's going to be violent, it's going to be manipulated, then what we are likely to see is a ripple effect in terms of violence, in terms of continued social discohesion, which will in the end impact negatively on the region, but also on Africa. So there is a need, I think, as Ostallos said, for the African Union, for the Southern Africa Development Community, for the media, as we are doing, to keep a focus on electoral processes in Zimbabwe and also in other parts of the world, because the citizens of Zimbabwe are at the end of their struggles or whatever they are using in order to keep afloat. And what we may then see if there is a complete loss of trust in governance processes, is resorting to violence, resorting to criminality, and ultimately the collapse of the state. So what we are seeing in Sudan, what we see in DRC, what we see in Central African Republic is a huge possibility in Zimbabwe should the electoral processes be manipulated and should the state institutions that should countervail and play a watchdog role on each other be captured as they are.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Rashweat Mukundu, advisor at International Media Support, and Gift Ostallos Siziba, a national deputy spokesperson of the CCC party. Thank you for your time and insights. And we hope we don't see the decline of Zimbabwe into a failed state situation and things come round. Thank you very much for your time.